And welcome back to UofL Today with Mark Hebert on 93.9 The Ville. I know some of you are bummed out because it's cold and dreary this time of year, and a few of you might get really down in the dumps over the holidays. Dr. Stephen O'Connor is a psychologist, easy for me to say, with UofL Physicians and the Associate Director of the UofL Depression Center. He's here to talk about what you can do to lift your spirits in 2017. Stephen, welcome.
All right, thank you.
So what can I do to lift my spirits in 2017? I'm not bummed out, but just in case I need to, what do you find with some people around the holidays and when the weather gets dreary?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I think probably the place to start is to say, why is it that people tend to get a little bit blue over the holidays? I think it's the end of the year, so it's kind of a natural time for reflection. And reflection can be helpful or it can actually be harmful, right? Because it's kind of a solo mission and you're trying to figure out, well, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And I think sometimes people can misattribute why things didn't work out back to their own sort of self and maybe overestimate, things that they have control over. And so then it's easy sort of to blame yourself for things when they didn't work out. So one of the things that we talk about a lot with depression is this idea of rumination. So rumination is when you go internal and you're trying to seek answers. So there's two forms of rumination. One is reflection, which isn't so bad because it is good to sort of, take stock of what happened in the past and figure out, lessons learned and how do you kind of move forward more effectively in the future. But one of the harmful ways of ruminating is through brooding. So brooding is where you
get
actually
down and
you go internal and you're asking questions that seem like they're useful, but really they're negative thoughts in disguise. So you'll say things like, so what's wrong with me? Or why is it that I had another year where I didn't achieve my goals? So if you ask yourself those questions for a few minutes, then it's likely to invoke a sad mood. And so if you spend a lot of time doing that, there's the illusion that you're doing hard work and you're asking yourself tough questions to get answers, but really don't ever come up with any good information, to apply.
So don't ask yourself those questions, right?
Well, I think
is that what you're telling me?
If you're spending time internal, and it's been 2 or 3 minutes, you don't have any good information to apply to future goals, and you feel worse, then there's probably a good possibility that you're brooding. You're not really reflecting. So just knock it off. Come back outside of yourself, try and engage with the world around you, just to give yourself a break.
I think a lot of people suspect that around the holidays, some people get down and depressed because they've lost a loved one, and this is the first Christmas that they spent without grandma. Those aren't those kind of the more typical things instead of reflecting back on what I did in 2016 and thinking, man, this year really sucked.
I don't know. I mean, if you turn on the TV, you see commercials for getting a new Lexus. There's expectations if you're a parent that you're going to provide the perfect Christmas for your kids. And I think that it's tough. A lot of people are hurting out there financially. And so the unemployment rate is down, but it's not as if people are making more money now than they did a decade ago. And so it's just sort of the reality of maybe not being where you want to be, but that kind of goes back to misattributing, why it is that you aren't able to provide those things to your family. Is it really because you're kind of a worthless, hopeless person, which is kind of depressed
that's
thinking?
Really depressing. No, I don't want to think that.
Yeah, or is it more about, maybe I need to find ways to sort of think outside the box, and if I'm really hoping that I can change things up, my quality of life in the future, then maybe I need to get some consultation from sort of an outside resource, maybe a family friend or a therapist or someone within the church, anything like that.
We're talking with Dr. Stephen O'Connor, who's a psychologist with UofL Physicians and the Associate Director of the UofL Depression Center. What is depression management?
Well, depression management is thinking about if you are a person who's prone to be depressed and you have a history of depression, unfortunately, you're probably always going to be at risk to kind of have a relapse back into a depressive episode compared to other people. And if you've had more depressed episodes, then you're even more likely to fall back into depression in the future. Okay. But there's actually a lot of really good data that you can manage your depression effectively if you stay engaged throughout the day, throughout the week. You don't let your mood dictate your behavior. So you commit to a schedule, and instead of saying, well, I'm going to go join the YMCA when I feel good enough, you actually say, no, I'm going to join the YMCA and I'm going to work out this many times per week, and I'm going to fit it into my schedule rather than saying I'm going to slide it in when I have time. So I think that's depression care management, where you really sign up for a program. It's as if, you were taking a course in life and how to live a less depressed life. So you can manage those symptoms effectively by,
Setting
goals, and I think staying committed just to a schedule and taking care of yourself, eating well, exercising, spending time with friends and family, just kind of taking care of yourself in general.
What's the difference between just being bummed out and being a glass half empty person versus being depressed? What's the difference in psychological terms, as simply as you can describe it?
Well, depression is kind of one of these big latent factors that we think about in psychology. It's kind of like love or hate. You know it
when you see it?
They mean a lot. They're different to different people.
Okay.
And so depression is something that there's 9 different symptoms of depression. You only need 5 in order to meet the diagnosis. That means there's a lot of different combinations. So people can experience it different ways. But ultimately, when people get depressed in a major depressive episode, they have a depressed mood more days than not, and then they have a lack of interest in doing things that they used to do. So that's different than just feeling sad or bummed out because something contextually happened. Let's say that there's a breakup. Let's say that your favorite sports team lost. You were really, sort of invested in them, or you didn't get the grades that you wanted to. That's contextual, and that's about sort of something that's happening kind of right now, and it makes sense to have this response mood-wise, to be sad. That's okay, But depression is really when you kind of enter into a set of cognitive, thinking styles where you're kind of forecasting the future's not going to go the way you want it to, or you're thinking that you don't have the skills and the ability to ever have a life that you want, and that other people really don't care about you that much. It's more about a kind of a constellation of those things, and it has to happen for 2 weeks, more days than not. Yeah, so it's a prolonged period.
And you just answered my next question, I think, which was going to be, how do I know when to pick up the telephone and call ULP and ask for Dr. Stephen O'Connor? I need to visit with him, or go to the UofL Depression Center and I need to check in there. How do I guess it's after 2 weeks, if I'm really down in the dumps and don't want to go out of the house, I need to pick up the phone.
Yeah, I think so. There's different severity levels of depression. And so there's a mild, there's moderate, and there's severe. A lot of times where people first start talking about depression and feeling sad more days than not is with their primary care physician. And most people enter into mental health oftentimes not with their first major depressive episode, but probably through the urging of family or friends or from a primary care physician. So I think really trying to be open with your support network and talking to people and saying, been having a rough time. What are some ways that I might be able to deal with this myself? And then if people really feel like, well, this has been going on for a while, you tried certain things, it's just not working, I think that's when you really want to seek out specialty mental health care.
Can you get out of temporary, I'll call it depression, that's probably too strong a term, but temporary bumminess by eating a bowl of ice cream or taking a 3-day vacation? Can you? Does that work, or is that just delaying the symptoms?
Well, it's good to take a break. Number one, it's good to do things that you enjoy. It's good to do things that engage you and pull you outside of yourself. So exercise is just a fantastic way to do that. Socializing is a good way. I think you don't want to overdo anything, right? Everything in moderation. Same is true with alcohol. If you found that you can use alcohol to relax, but you're not going to overuse it and you don't use it as a way to cope with a sad mood, then I think that that's okay. But once it turns into this is something I'm relying upon in order to escape from this sad mood, then it's sort of like, well, I think that there are probably bigger issues here that you need to deal with, that things like eating ice cream or drinking alcohol or escaping away to do other things, probably it's just not enough.
And we got about 30 seconds left here. So what would you tell folks about ULP and the UofL Depression Center? Should they pick up the phone and call you if they think they've got a loved one or themselves they're struggling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a great set of faculty and residents and staff that are through ULP Depression Center. So we're located at 401 East Chestnut, down on the medical campus. We have psychiatry, we have psychology, we have social work. We just have some really great opportunities for people to come in and be evaluated, receive evidence-based practices. And then we're really excited because starting this month on the fourth Thursday, we have Dr. Paul Salmon from the Department of Psychology, who's going to come down and he's going to start leading mindfulness groups for depression care management. So then carrying forward, that will be every second and fourth Thursday of the month from 4:15 to 5 o'clock. They're completely free. They've been
Just walk in.
You got it. And so we're able to do that from the generous contributions from people in the community.
Okay, very good. Dr.
Yeah.
Stephen O'Connor, appreciate you being on the show.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.